Portugal is one of the oldest states in Europe, and its capital is one of the most ancient European cities. The modern Lisbon is located where there used to be the city of Lisbon. It was founded by the Phoenicians. Most likely, the passion for travel and geographical discoveries was inherited from them by the Portuguese. In translation from the Phoenician language, Lisbon means a safe harbor. Thousands of years later, the ships of Vasco da Gama, Bartholomew Dias, and Ferdinand Magellan, the main local pioneers, left the harbor for long voyages. Owing to their efforts, Portugal became a powerful empire. Its domain stretched from Brazil in the west to the Moluccas in the east. Add the part of the east and west coasts of Africa to this, and admire the scale. In modern Lisbon, much reminds of its great imperial past: palaces, triumphal arches, and other impressive architectural designs. Attention, a question. What do the structure behind my back and the Eiffel Tower have in common? First, it was built by Eiffel's student. Secondly, like the Eiffel Tower, it's an absolute symbol of the city. But then differences begin. The Eiffel Tower doesn't carry any practical load. This is a pure French engineering show-off, and it can be useful to you only if you want to make a selfie at an altitude of 300 meters, being surrounded by Chinese tourists. But this tower isn't exactly a tower, but a lift shaft that connects two districts of the city, the upper and the lower ones. Thus, in my opinion, this is one of the most useful symbols of the cities of the world. The Frenchman Raoul Meunier de Ponsard built this miracle of technical thought at the turn of the 19th and the 20th centuries. The lift received the name Santa Justa and connected the district of Baixa with the one named Beirut Alto. Actually, you can get by lift from one part of the city to another in 5 minutes. It is 6 times longer to do it on foot and even longer by car. The traffic here is dense. Traffic jams are common even at weekends. Therefore, the residents of Lisbon prefer to literally rise above the traffic jams on a lift. The second absolute and useful symbol of Lisbon is the old tram that goes along the famous Route 28. It's rumored that it is so old that Vasco da Gama and Ferdinand Magellan used to take a ride on it when they returned from their travels in the epoch of great geographical discoveries. And now forget all that I've told you about the benefits of these symbols. In order to get into the lift, you need to queue for an hour and a half, and the locals have not been going by this tram for a long time. Everything is occupied by tourists. At some distance from the tourist routes in Lisbon, there is a district called Alvalade. Tram 28 doesn't go here. There are no rails, and therefore, there are no tourists here, although it would be a good idea for them to visit this place. At last I've understood the main thing, guys. All the markets in Russia were built by the Portuguese. The proof of this is behind my back. Note here such cheerful designs of grey concrete and glass, which can be found in almost any Russian regional center. This market is called Alvalade, and it is located in the silk stocking district of Lisbon. And now I'll show you what a typical market for the locals, which hasn't been discovered by tourists yet, looks like. Follow me, please. The Alvalade Market is located at 27 Rio de Janeiro Avenue. The easiest way to get here from the city center, from Rossio Square, is by metro. Get on the train on the green branch at the Rossio station, go 8 stops to the station Alvalade, and go 5 minutes more on foot from there. So what catches your eye when you come to the market? Fish! We have made shots of the Mediterranean fish markets many times, so many that I already know every fish's face. And here's the Atlantic, and almost all the fish at this market is from there. Well, what's the difference between the Atlantic fish from the Mediterranean at first glance? The same as the Atlantic Ocean differs from the Mediterranean Sea in size. This fish is bigger. Let's try to delve into the details. Meet the exhibit number 1, Pesce Espada. or a swordfish, is one of the most popular local species. The Portuguese cook it in different ways. Grill it, make soup, salt it, and just fry. It has dense, tasty white meat. As to the bones, there's only the spine, that one, and somewhere here. That is, in fact, such a sausage fish. Well, pay attention to its surprised face. Approximately with such a facial expression, I fill in the tax return at the end of the year. And that's what my tax inspector looks like. Well, I'm just kidding. It's a goosefish, and the main value of this fish is in its liver. Here it is. Local people fry it, add rice, and get the popular folk dish, arroz de tamboril. This is the main fish symbol of Portugal, guys. Made bacalhau. It's the same as a cod. The Portuguese know 365 ways of cooking it, according to the number of days in a year. They eat it on birthdays, weddings, funerals, Christmas, the New Year, Bar Mitzvah, and Pesach. And now the most interesting. The main fish symbol of Portugal is not caught in Portugal. They go to the shores of Canada for it. Well, or to Norway. Listen, let's go. I'm already bored here. The international rating, The Best Fish of the World, was published a few years ago. And the first place in this rating belongs not to France, not to Spain, not to Italy, and not even to Asian countries. Portugal is on the first place. Local fish is recognized as the freshest and cheapest in the world. And this is because Portugal stretches along the Atlantic Ocean. And fishing here is nice, easy, and not expensive. Therefore, most Japanese sushi bars around the world use Portuguese fish. But the link between Japan and Portugal is not limited by this. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach the coast of Japan and establish trade relations with them. About 200 words in modern Japanese are of Portuguese origin. The most famous is arigato. It comes from the Portuguese obrigado, thank you. However, Alvalade doesn't live by fish alone. Meat and vegetables, for which the local residents regularly come to this market, can also be bought here. By the way, the average age of visitors of the market is over 60. I hope the following information will interest them and you, my dear and eternally young viewers. In the 15th century, Lisbon was the richest and most luxurious city in Europe. 3 centuries later, it was destroyed by an earthquake. 40,000 people died. 300 palaces and over 100 temples turned into ruins. 3 centuries later, in the 21st century, Lisbon is again on the rise. You can verify this in particular at local markets. I invite you to one of them, by the way. Karma, have you finished your coffee?
Yes, I have. Do you know, by the way, that the Portuguese are one of the main consumers of coffee in the world? Moreover, we are the ones that open coffee to the whole world, bringing it from Brazil, our former colony, in the era of the great geographical discoveries.
And you know that I'm here not only for coffee. Come quickly. Let's see what we can get here. I want to buy something typically Portuguese as a souvenir, but not for €1,000,000.
Okay, let's go.
The oldest flea market in the capital of Portugal, Feira da Ladra, is located in the most picturesque district of Lisbon. It's called Alfama. The market occupies the entire street of Campo de Santa Clara. The easiest way to get here from the city center is by the same legendary Tram 28. You need to get off at San Vicente and go on foot from it for 3 minutes more, and you're here. What an interesting thing.
Yes, it's a doorbell. You can hang it at the entrance to the house or in the corridor. It's decorated with a black cockerel. It's called Barcelos. This is one of the main symbols of our country.
I must tell you that I don't buy anything from my collection, but those things only that have a practical value.
Well, that's it.
Well, my dear friends, that is, of course, a useful thing that can serve you today. It's good enough to hang it somewhere near the door, but if you plan to buy something like this, I advise you to hang it higher, because if there are children in the house, they will torture you with the sound. And can I bargain here?
Well, in any case, you can try.
Then let's find out the price.
15 euro.
Will you give me 2 for the price of 1?
2 costs 25.
No, well, 2 are already a pair. That is 2 if you hang. 1 can be hung near the door, so the guests make their arrival heard. The second in the bedroom to call for servants. A pair is better than 1. And for 20, it's difficult to bargain here.
Well, at least you've tried.
Can I get them for 22?
23.
Fine, 23. It's a little victory. A pair of traditional Portuguese doorbells, 23 euros, my dear friends. Karma, and this is an azulejo, isn't it?
You're right. This is one of the most important symbols of our country. Almost all the houses here are lined with similar ceramic tiles. By the way, many people believe that the most traditional azulejos are white and blue, and this is not quite true. We got white-blue tiles only in the 18th century, under the influence of Chinese porcelain, after our merchants established trade relations with China.
And what about the most traditional ones?
Blue and white azulejos are also traditional, but yellow, blue, and green ones aren't less traditional. Here are the azulejos of different centuries. For example, here are the tiles of the 18th century.
Is there any difference in the style of azulejo?
It depends on the purpose for which they were used. For interior decoration or for external decoration. This year, by the way, 261 years have passed since the earthquake, which almost completely destroyed Lisbon. So tiles started to be used to cover houses outside only after the earthquake. This is carried out for 2 reasons. First, azulejos are beautiful and quite inexpensive. Secondly, they perfectly protect the facades of houses from precipitation.
And where do local sellers usually take these azulejos?
Sometimes they buy azulejos at the factories, and there are still factories engaged in their production in the vicinity of Lisbon. Sometimes the tiles are chopped straight from the facades of the old houses that are under restoration.
So it turns out that everyone can come and pick himself an old tile.
Of course, it's officially forbidden, but...
I see you don't need to continue. So most of all, I like this tile.
Yes, it's very beautiful. This is the 19th century.
And how much does it cost?
5 euro.
5 euros? I would pay 10 for it. Well, I don't know if you can find a better souvenir to bring from Lisbon, because this is its absolute symbol. It costs only 5 euros for a product of the 19th century, and more than that, if you buy it, it shouldn't be stored somewhere in a dark closet. You can put it on the wall. Actually, you can use it every day. You know, perhaps I will buy 4 such tiles at once. Azulejo is an absolute, time-rested symbol of Portugal, only 5 euros apiece. And what an interesting ceramic. There are vegetables and fish here.
This is the ceramics of one of the most famous of our factories located in the city of Caldas da Rainha. Its production started at the beginning of the last century. It was invented by the man called Bordalo Pinheiro. He decided to recreate traditional Portuguese dishes in pottery in a 1-to-1 ratio. For example, here's a ceramic dish with a lobster. Many Portuguese like to decorate their houses with such things.
And how do they decorate them?
In different ways. Someone hangs on the wall in the kitchen or in the living room. Look, here's a Portuguese cabbage in all its variants. Fish, of course. Frogs are also our traditional theme.
Do you eat frogs here?
No, we decorate our houses with them. And here are the sardines. They're very popular in Portugal. We have a season of sardines every year, during which everybody eats them. We usually grill them, with a slice of bread and a lot of olive oil.
Oh, it sounds so delicious.
Thank you, but the most important thing is that this ceramic is made by local craftsmen in exact accordance with the actual size of our traditional dishes.
I think that's a great idea. If you do not have enough money for all these delicacies, you can just buy some ceramics.
Yes, and make it look like a rich table.
A traditional Portuguese ceramic is an average of 10 euros per item. I have visited dozens of flea markets, but I've never seen anyone selling wine in bottles at them before. What kind of wine is it?
It seems to many people that we drink only port wine in Portugal.
Oh, isn't it port wine?
No. We have 14 regions in the country where excellent wine is produced. For example, this is the wine from the vicinity of Lisbon. Did you know that wine is produced near Lisbon?
Now I do.
For instance, this is a bottle of the harvest of 1980.
80. So it turns out that this wine is 36 years old.
Yes, this is the wine of a very famous wine house in our country.
Hasn't it got spoiled? By the way, is it drinkable?
Yes, but we must cool it for a start.
But it's 36 years old.
And so what? If the wine has been stored according to all the rules, you can and should drink it. And look at this interesting bottle.
The most important question, how much does it cost?
In a store, a bottle of this wine will cost you an average of 35 euro, provided that you find it there. Here, it costs 10 euro.
10 euros for a bottle of wine that is 36 years old. I've been traveling around the world's markets for a long time now. I've never left the dream to buy something really valuable for a penny. I'll take this bottle of wine. I'll try to offer it to my friends in Moscow. They're owners of all kinds of chateaux, just in case they get interested in it. But it seems to me if it costs 10 euros here, I shouldn't tell anyone about it because in Moscow it can cost 1,500. And what's here?
The Portuguese colonial heritage is sold here. You probably know that Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Bissau belonged to us in the past. This is, for example, an Angolan mask.
Is it ebony?
Yes, it is.
And by the way, what kind of relationship is there between Portugal and its former lands now?
It's normal. We have a lot of immigrants from Africa. And Portuguese, by the way, is the 8th most popular language in the world. In many respects, this happened thanks to our vast colonies, because there are only 10 million people in Portugal itself. Are you fond of music?
Yes, my parents are musicians.
Then let's go to the music stall. Well, Sasha, it's time to show you the most important and most famous symbols of Portugal. What do you think it is?
I'll try to guess. This is port.
No, and it's not cod, and not even sardines, although everyone thinks that we eat them all the time.
So is it Cristiano Ronaldo's first pair of boots?
No. I'm talking about music. Fado. Do you know it?
Of course I do, and I really like it.
I'm glad. Fado is the music that was born here in Lisbon. Today, Fado is an intangible heritage of UNESCO. This is a huge part of our culture and history. Fado was born in the region of Mauraria, the ancient district of Lisbon, in the 16th century. Originally, it was music sung by slaves while they were being taken to Portugal. Local sailors adopted their manner of performance, adding a lot of their own, and then taught this music to the residents of the capital.
What is the main charm of Fado, in your opinion?
The main charm of Fado is saudade. It's difficult to explain what it is if you are not a Portuguese. It is something like a light yearning for something that can never be.
That's what's been happening to me for the past 10 years. Now I know how it's called, saudade.
Let me show you the records of the main performers of Fado.
For example, this one, right?
No, not at all. This is Caldas Ramos. But I didn't mean it.
He looks exactly like my grandfather in his youth. I bet my granny.
Here.
De Carmo.
Carlos de Carmo. Yes, he's been singing for almost 50 years. He's a very famous singer. Let's see if we can find the record of Amalia Rodriguez, the main singer of Fado.
And who's your favorite Fado performer?
Of the old guard or of the young singers?
Well, from the old, of course.
Amalia Rodriguez. No one can compare to her. But look, what a handsome man. He's also a well-known singer of fado.
I'm not an expert in the masculine beauty. He looks just like an ordinary man.
But he looks like a gentleman.
In my opinion, fado is perhaps the champion among the music which can be called romantic. The second of its features is that fado doesn't require a good acoustics of the high-end class. It seems to me that, on the contrary, it spoils it. It is enough to put such a record on an old record player and make the sound to a minimum, and to sit in a dim restaurant, lit by red lanterns, sipping port in the company of a beautiful woman. It's impossible to imagine more perfect music for such a case. But fado is such a kind of music that it's better to hear it once than listen to us talking about it for a half hour. Finally, I'll tell you about the main thing. There are not so many countries in the world with which we Russians have much in common, and Portugal is one of them. It's almost 4,000 kilometers from Moscow to Lisbon, like to Novosibirsk, only in another direction. Despite this distance, we and the Portuguese have much in common. Moscow and Lisbon are like two extreme flanks of Europe. Moscow is its easternmost and Lisbon is the westernmost capital. Just like Russia, Portugal used to be a great empire at its time. Just like us, the Portuguese tend to sigh of their former greatness at times. This is not to mention our common love for port, travel, and romantic songs. Here they're called fado, as you've already understood. In short, don't be surprised if being here, you, like me, feel at home. So should it be. And in conclusion, a little more important information for you, my dear viewers. And now let's revise the material we've learned. Portugal is fish. We remember that an international rating of the world's best fish was released several years ago, and Portugal takes the first place in it rightfully. Here all fish is fresh, caught in the Atlantic Ocean, and much cheaper than from their neighbors. Second, Portugal is Lisbon. Lisbon has recently been actively improving. The markets are not lagging behind. The best of them is the Mercado de Campo de Urique. You can get there by the famous Route 28 on a retro tram. It is, in fact, the younger brother of the famous La Boqueria in Barcelona. It's a hybrid of a market and a restaurant. Here you have a great opportunity to try fresh local products which are cooked. Portugal is azulejo, a famous ceramic tile with a pattern which has been used to literally line the whole country. You can buy an azulejo in any gift shop in the form of a magnet, but it's better to go for them to Feira da Ladra, the famous Lisbon flea market. This tile is more than 100 years old, and you might laugh, but I bought it for €5. You can also buy everything that the Portuguese managed to get out of their former colonies there. And now about the weather. It is windy in Portugal. This is the wind that almost always blows from the Atlantic Ocean. It carries the real air of freedom. If you breathe this air for a long time, sooner or later you will want to weigh an anchor, set sails, and leave in an unknown direction, as the locals have been doing since the beginning of times. Obrigado for your attention. At this moment, millions of people are buying and selling something somewhere, which means I need to go there. Alexander Pranikov, the World Market Show. The best of luck to you.